What's up YouTube? It's Big Bob. I'm back in my shop here. I'm going to take a shot at making a front console swap video for a 2015 F150. I believe it's the same for 2015 to 2020. I'm not a cross-reference expert. There's a ton of different options for these trucks. There's a ton of different varieties of what comes in them, what can be put in them. I'm just going to try to do this for my truck. It's a 2015 XTR. I have a console out of a 2017 Sport, XLT Sport, I believe. I got that from a scrapyard. There's a lot of information on how to swap these online. Kind of scattered all over the place. There is one really good YouTube video that a gentleman made. I can link it or comment it below. It covers a lot of this. It didn't really cover the HVAC and a couple other things I was looking for. So I was going to make my own, kind of add on to what he has. Hopefully show some part numbers for how I got the HVAC to work. Show how this comes apart, how you get the dash apart, how the jump seat comes out, and how the new console goes back together. So it's a pretty big project. It's not crazy. It's all pretty easy. It's just kind of tedious. I'm not an electrician. I'm not a mechanic. I'm just going to take a shot at filming this and hopefully I can help somebody out. First thing here is slide your passenger side. Slide the passenger seat all the way forward. There's a plastic clip like this that covers these two bolts in the back. Probably clip out with a screwdriver or a pick. Then it's a 13 millimeter to back those out. Same exact thing on the front. Bolt there, the bolt down there, covered by a plastic clip. Peel those off, 13 millimeter, and back them out. They're pretty long, like 2.5 inch, so it takes a little bit to back them out. You'll need an impact probably, because they're probably have Loctite on them and stuff, so they come out kind of hard. Impact makes it easy. Next step is this electrical connector. There's a tab. You press down, and then you can flip this gray bar out. I have that tab pressed already. It takes two hands, but I'll show it once I have it out. So that's just, once you have that loose, that just rolls back and the plug will come out. There's also a Christmas tree clip right back here. Holds the wiring harness to the seat. You're gonna pop that off. This is the shot with the seat out. Right here is the tab you gotta press to be able to flip this down. So you depress that, at the same time you flip that gray lever down, that plug will come right out. Now that I got the passenger seat out, probably a good time to vacuum out underneath there. You can never really get it all with the seat in. Next up, we remove this console. Walk through the bolts for that. I believe there's 4. The electrical connector here down on the side, passenger side. I believe that's going to give us a lot of the stuff we need for the actual console swap too. So we'll do the jump seat, and then I'll take the dash apart. All right, this plug down here is what gives me hope. Tons and tons of wires coming in on the right hand side. Not very much leaving, because there's not as much going on in the jump seat as there is the console, but I believe everything's wired up and this should work pretty good. There's a tab right here. Push that in, it'll come right out. That's for the jump seat bolts. There's 1 in here, 2 back here. Again, this is passenger side, 13 millimeters. Buzz mine out of there with an impact. The driver's side looks to be about the same. I'm not sure if this one's on the driver's side. I'm gonna try to do all this without taking out the driver's seat. I'd like to not take out the driver's seat, but we'll see. Looks like 3 bolts on this side and 2 on the other. So it's pretty much the same on the driver's side here. There's a bolt here, and then there is a bolt right down there. It's really hard to see with this particular lighting setup, but it's right there. You just got to slide the seat forward, and you'll be able to see it. All right, there it is, out. So again, 1, 2, 3 passenger side, 1, 2 driver's side. Did not have to take out the driver's seat. I hope I don't have to later. Really filthy. Can't wait to vacuum all that up. Just got to wrestle this thing out of the back of the truck, and that is all complete. Next step on this is to start taking the dash apart. First step on that is removing this little cover with the speaker. It's held in with those same white clips that are all over this truck. It is different if you don't have the speaker. I can't show that obviously because I have the speaker. So the first thing to do here is take the speaker out, or the speaker cover off, excuse me. I just ran around the outside with a trim puller, popped it up, comes out. After that, there's 2 screws on each side of the speaker, and then those need to come out. The speaker is 2 Torx 20 screws. That pops out. Got a connector on it. Depress right here. Pull that out. Set the speaker aside. Next step are these 2 screws up top here. Those are both 7mm bolts. Back those out, and then this tray should lift right out. Next are these 2 7mm that hold this faceplate on. There were some plastic clips that hold that tray in there, so there's 2 bolts in the back and then 2 plastic clips in the front. Not a big deal, but same thing on this thing. Pop these 2 screws out and you should be able to work off that whole faceplate all the way down. There will be some connectors behind there for the buttons up here and the buttons down on each panel there. You just want to take those out as you go. So removing the faceplate, I got mine popped here, but a little bit nerve-wracking. I had to grab it just like this and just kind of pull straight out. A little nerve-wracking. I say nerve-wracking because it just seems like a lot of force, but it's just those stiff plastic clips. I didn't break anything. It's just grabbing it up here and giving it a nice firm and gradual pull until it lets loose. Then you can work the edges with a trim tool and pop out the rest of the clips. Remember to unhook all the connectors for the buttons and the controls below here. Popping this free wasn't hard, but the electrical connectors were kind of stubborn. The 2 on top have a real tiny tab right on the end here. This little tab right in there. You depress that, it'll pull out. Those are both like that. And these 2 big ones on the bottom, it's kind of hard to see where they come apart, but they actually have a pretty obvious button on both of them that will allow you to pull those out. Again, your vehicle might be different based on the options that you have. The plugs behind there could be the same with, you know, just less wires and different pinouts and things like that with the same connectors, but they're easy to get out once you know where to press. It's always a adventure figuring that out, but that little pocket right there, press that. See that in there? You can see it right here. When I press on that, it moves. And then the same thing on these. This big button on the bottom, it'll pop right out. Next, we're gonna pull off this lower trim here. Just pops off this side, and then down here by the gas pedal, there's a 7mm that's tucked in there. The way that this is sitting in there, I'm certain that console trim will wrap up here, and then it pops up here. There's a side piece for the console that'll mate right up there. You gotta pop that bolt out and take this whole lower trim piece off. Next, we're going to pop off our side trim pieces. These will be replaced. We'll get to that, but those will get replaced with a new console because they have a cutout in them where the console meets. So I usually just grab them in here and pop them free like that. Pop them free like that, and then run a trim tool around the perimeter, and they'll pop right off. This will have a connector behind here. There'll be a connector behind the 4-wheel drive. There'll be a connector behind the brake controller, and if you have trailer backup assist, there'll be a connector there. One thing I will do while this is apart, cigarette lighter is not something I get a lot of use out of. I almost always have an adapter for a USB charger, so you end up having an adapter plus the cord. What I like to do on these and other vehicles is replace them with a USB charging port, no adapter needed. Gives it a really clean look. I like to be able to close the door and stuff, so we'll put that in there. It's really easy to hook up, just 2 wires. And this door will close and it'll be hidden behind there, and then you won't need an adapter. You just can plug your cord right in there, whether it's USB-C or your standard USB. So we'll get that done. I'll show you how to do that. So the last piece of the puzzle here is this bottom panel. This has your current SD line in and sync. There's USB ports on it with a cigarette lighter. You can see the connectors for those back there, one there and one over here. To get this panel off, there's a 7mm here, a 7mm here, and then underneath there's a 10mm here and a 10mm on this side right here. Once you pull those out, disconnect those 2 connectors. That piece should come off, and that should be the extent of it for disassembly, I hope. If there is, I'll obviously add it, but that should be the last of it. Once you get the 4 bolts out of this lower piece, it's a cigarette lighter clip. You press right here like on this Y-shaped piece. That will pull that out. This clip got a button right on the back side, and then this USB, old school USB one, has a button right on the top here. This one went in here. Cigarette lighter obviously is over here, and that square one was in here. Those come out pretty easy. You have plenty of room to work with. Next step here is to take a look at the HVAC stuff and see how I'm going to connect that up. So this is under the CD player here. This here appears to me to be the exact shape of the HVAC parts that are needed to make this work. So it looks like if this were a console truck, this face right here would be open. It would come down, it would make a 90-degree corner, and it would come out. Again, this is kind of looking up behind the CD player. So what's going to need to happen there is I'm going to have to cut this out, this face on here. Sorry for my hand. I'm going to have to cut that face around that flat face out of there with a Dremel or something. Not a lot of room in here, but should be able to cut that out, and then the HVAC pieces I have for this should connect right up to the console. Just when I thought the disassembly would be complete, I thought it would be easier taking the CD player out, which I did. There's 4 screws on it, there's 2 on each side, and then there's antenna plugs and stuff in the back. It's no different than everything else we've taken off the front here. A few fasteners, a few electrical plugs, and the whole CD player will pull right out of there. It does get you a little bit more access behind, but just want to mention that. So here's the console and all of its pieces to be swapped in. I paid 85 bucks for this console from a scrapyard. It came out of a 2017 XLT Sport. It has this hard rubber lid, which I prefer over like an upholstered lid, which they just seem to get really dirty and grimy, and then your elbow ends up wearing a little punch hole in it, and it gets all cracked where your elbow sits. And these just hold up really well. I had one on my old truck. I had to clean this thing up. It was disgusting. Dirt, grime, dog hair, you name it. I have a separate video you can watch on how I fixed this door. It was completely inoperable when I bought this console, but I got that fixed. Included in the 85 bucks were these trim pieces. I popped out the trailer brake stuff. Well, this is the 4-wheel drive. That's brake controller, and this is your AC power. We'll get there eventually, but those came with. I had to buy the HVAC parts. You can see the trim for the sides of the console here down there. This is the back panel and the top, the rear passenger cup holders. I also purchased different cup holders for the front. This was a floor shift, pistol grip shift console. I do not like that. My truck does not have that, and I do not want that. I believe you can take a column shift truck, which mine is, and make it a floor shift, but you can't go the other way. You can't make a floor shift into a column shift. I don't know much about that. I have no interest in learning. I prefer steering column shift. I bought this insert here off eBay. I can share that. Again, I'll share part numbers. This was like 150 some bucks, pretty expensive. Had to clean it up. There's another $40 for that rubber mat in there. But now I have the layout that I prefer. I like this big pocket on the left. I like the 2 cup holders with the 2 cup holders in the back of the console. I think that works really nice. So these are all the parts and pieces. I'll cover them as we go through this whole project. The console itself should be pretty easy to put in there. It's just a matter of getting everything apart. Another thing I'd like to mention quick, this hazy, chalky look on this console, you're probably thinking, boy, that really looks like crap. Why would you want to put that in your truck? Agreed. 85 bucks for this thing. I did not expect perfection. I thought I could get it cleaned up, and I found a product that I'd like to share. I'm not affiliated in any way. I don't even have a subscriber. So I'm just going to share this because it worked awesome. I've looked for something like this for a long time. Found some stuff on the internet. People recommended it. It's called Solution Finish. That's what it looks like. It's a black trim restore. It's pretty easy to use. It is messy if you get it on your hands and stuff. They recommend to wear gloves, but every piece of like black trim on this console looked like this, with this hazy kind of washed out appearance. I'm sure you've seen that on bumper trim or windshield cowls and things. Happens to pretty much every vehicle, but these pieces over here used to look like that. Now they look like new. So this stuff, again, Solution Finish, it worked really, really, really well. You apply it with a sponge. They gave me all the stuff to apply it. It came with a sponge, it came with a microfiber, it came with a little foam paintbrush, but this side, aside from this one little spot where there was some wear on this thing, I think from the seat, it looks phenomenal. So if you're doing this and your console's not perfect, or even the trim on your truck isn't perfect, give this stuff a try. Here's the after on that same side with the Solution Finish. You apply it, you buff it off. So I do that once, and I'll do that again. Apply it, buff it off again once it dries up good. It will absolutely destroy your microfiber. That might wash out, I don't know. But the microfiber comes with it. You apply it on with the sponge they give you, buff it off, and it looks significantly better already. So this here, there's your part number for this particular part. This is the HVAC piece to the console. I'm not sure if it goes like this or like this. That remains to be seen. But that fits around this foam foam inlet on the console, and it creates that vent. The other piece, this one here, the other part number, is what makes your corner. So from what we were just looking at in the truck, this looks like it would go up in there. It's got some spots for some screws to hold that. I'll probably put some weather stripping. This is the same shape that we saw there. It looks like there's even maybe a groove for a gasket or some silicone or whatever I decide to do. I'm sure you don't want a leak. It would probably whistle or make noise. You also want, you know, as much of the AC or the heat to go to the back of the console as possible. So this will come out, you know, out of the dash like so. It will hook onto this, and that will go into the console, and that will give us our vents. These two actually clip together. There's foam on this side, and I'm guessing that this is how it goes. I'm not quite sure yet. The other side has the sticker, so we'll see. But those fit together like that, and then that tucks in there, and that should hook up right up to our HVAC ducting right behind the dash. So this should work out pretty good. So as expected, this was kind of an SOB to get in here. I put it in through this bottom hole and kind of spun it up to the top, but it does match up perfectly with that. There's even, kind of hard to see here, I apologize, but there is even pre-drilled holes for the screws. It looks like you'll need like a coarse, just like those 7mm screws we took out through this whole process, those coarse kind of plastic screws. I'll show one when I put this back together, but there's pre-drilled holes for the hardware. The ducting meets up perfectly. The only real thing to do is to modify that face to allow air to flow. So I've got the beginnings of my modifications here. I used a 1/2-inch drill bit to drill a bunch of holes in that face. I'm going to try to cut it out beyond this. This may be enough, like on this left side here where it's a little bit cleaner. This may be enough airflow. I don't know if it will be or not. I don't want to take the risk and have to pull this all apart again, so I'm going to drill these holes all along here, and then hopefully just like by hand with a Sawzall blade or a jigsaw blade, like connect the holes together and remove the rest of that plastic on both sides here. What I use to do this is a flexible drill attachment. I got this at Ace Hardware. It was like 40 bucks. It wasn't cheap, but it's a DeWalt. Fished that up there, drilled 12 holes. Now I'm going to connect them. All right, this was not a picnic. It wasn't terrible, but the access of it just makes it really tough. So you can see my Dremel situated in there. I used a RotoZip bit on my Dremel. I'll take that out and I will show you what that looks like. You can see the plastic and stuff everywhere. I'll get that vacuumed up. But I essentially tried to use the Dremel to connect all those holes so that I could get my hand into that slot. I didn't go all the way across. There's like a support piece in the middle. So I used, you know, each side and augured that out the best I could. I was worried about the holes whistling. If they would, I have no idea. I'll probably kind of deburr this a little bit, knock down some of the leftover plastic on the edges with a file, and then vacuum all this out. But this seems to me like it would work pretty well. The RotoZip is noisy, it's messy, but it cuts right through that plastic. If you take your time and just kind of work your way from drilled hole to drilled hole, should work out good. So these are the RotoZip bits, just a multi-purpose bit. Make sure it's the right shank for your Dremel. If you have a smaller Dremel than what I use, that would probably be even better. Getting in here, again, access is the challenging part. But once you're in, again, I've got that pretty well opened up. You can see some scratches along the back, but I didn't break through or anything. You just make sure your RotoZip bit isn't up too far. Just walk that thing around the best you can. I could probably do a little bit more cleaning up on this, but I do think once I get the little plastic burrs and stuff off there, this will work just fine. One thing you're going to want to do too is get a pad like this. This is just a cheap Home Depot like gardening kneeling pad. It's big steel brackets in the center, and you got nothing to lay on in here. So having a little pad really helps. All right, so once you get the holes cut up there, you can slide your HVAC duct. Again, I put it in the bottom down there, and you rotate it up that way to get it nestled in there. It'll hook right on there, and then there's two screws. There's one there. It's hard to see with my light, but The other one is right there. They're the real coarse T20 hex, real coarse threaded type plastic screws. I'll include a part number, but just those 2 screws, once it's clipped in the top, and that thing is rock solid. I also put the CD player back in again, super simple. 4 bolts. Make sure you get all the plugs. I believe there's 4 on the back. 2 like big flat black wiring connectors, and then some for the antenna and stuff. So, all right, with everything set up, we should be ready to bring the console in, set it on here, and see how the bolt holes line up and stuff. I'd seen online that a lot of the 13mm bolts that held in the jump seat are not what hold in the console. So we'll see how that lines up. The wiring should connect right in. The sync wire is there. The USB and stuff is over there on that little black connector. That stuff should all hook up. I will probably have one big large connector that doesn't get used, that was for the column shift, or the pistol grip shifter and stuff. All right, I've got this wrestled in here. Probably a 2-man job. I was able to do it by myself, going through the back door and just kind of dragging it in here. Kind of a pain. It's not awful. It's certainly doable by yourself. So get it slid in here. The bolt holes on this side, they're pretty obvious. They're in there. There's one in there. About the same place on the other side. I can get a shot of that in a second here, but they're not the 13s we used to take out. I would imagine, maybe it's just speculation, but the actual seat for the jump seat's an actual seat for a person, so there's probably some more strict safety standards there. The console is just a console, just holds a bunch of junk in the center most of the time. So the bolts are different. They're actually the ones we took out earlier in the project. These look to me like an M6 with a 10mm head. Those fit right in there. I've got some miscellaneous hardware from old projects and stuff in my shop, so I'll probably just rustle something up out of there. But these bolts we took out earlier, there were 2 of them. Those fit just right. If you go to the hardware store, you could probably find some just like that. All right, now is as good a time as any to go over the wiring. This plug here, there's one that comes out of the console. It's tucked underneath there right now, but it's under there. It's a direct hookup. I mentioned at the beginning, my jump seat had 2 wires coming out of the seat side of it. This has a lot more hooked in. I'm hoping, and from what I've seen online, there's that plug right there. When you hook those 2 up, I should get power to mostly everything in the console. That leaves the, sorry about my light here. That leaves the wiring in the front. So the little sync module here, it's pretty much the same thing that's in the jump seat. It's just, it tucks into that hole right there. It just slides in here. I can't find a way to get this thing pushed all the way forward and then get the wires hooked up to it. So I have this pulled back. I'm gonna pull this out, pop the wires through the hole, hook it up, and then snap that back in. So this wire here, this old school USB looking one, that goes to that sync device. This flat pin connector, that goes there, and then this goes onto the cigarette lighter. It's like a triangular type or 3-prong type deal. This is also cigarette lighter. That's from my old wiring. So the console came in, it was a floor shift, so it had this huge connector on it. As far as I can tell, I won't need this, but I will update as I go here. That runs in here. That has all these same plugs on it, so that's a repeat. This is a repeat, and then the sync wire also, which I took out, that all came from this. So I imagine the way this was wired from the factory and the other truck, this plug took care of all that. But again, you need these 2. That should get everything we need on the front, and then the one down here. So I'll get it hooked up. I'll see what works, see what doesn't, and we'll go from there. All right, I've got this console pushed all the way forward. I had to pop this this little sync device. You pinch it on the back and it slides out. Then you kind of feed the wires through that hole as you're pushing the console forward. Needed a second set of hands to hold those wires, and I got everything pushed forward. I got the HVAC piece, can't really see in that shot. The HVAC piece is hooked up. I put all the HVAC pieces on, then slid the console into it. Connecting the wires was not easy. You're gonna need another person. It's just not a lot of room as you push it forward, but the best luck I had was taking that out, pulling the wires through, hooking them up, and then snapping that thing back in. Other thing I wanted to touch on while I have this apart is this was the old cigarette lighter plug. Got a purple and a black with a blue stripe. Black with a blue stripe is ground, purple's hot. I clipped those off, put a blade connector on, used the wiring that came with my my new device here. It's got blade connectors going to that. Put some blade connectors on here that match those. There's plenty of room behind there for the extra wire, so give myself a little room to work with in case I got to mess with something later. Once you have that stuff hooked up, make sure you hook up the other plug for the 110 outlet if you have it, and then that can all be taken back out and get ready to be put back on with that trim. Next thing I'm going to tackle here is my new USB charger. So this outlet and the vent and everything have to come out and go into my new trim pieces. So there's some clips around the perimeter of this. You just push these in and work this thing out. Same exact thing with the vent. Pop that out. Once we have it out, we'll take the cigarette lighter out. The cigarette lighters are a pain. There is a tab here and then the same one on the other side right down there. You pull those out, and then the metal body, this metal body of the cigarette lighter will slide out the front, and then the rest of the mounting will come out after that. If you try to do it the other way, you'll be messing with it for a long time. I've done these before. It doesn't pay to do it that way. Slide the metal out of the middle first, and then the rest of it will come out easy. Once you have that out, you got obviously an empty hole. You drop your new Quick Charge 3.0 in there. There's a little nut that spins on the back, and then we'll cover the wiring when I hook that back up. But it's really simple as that. It's a lot more functional. Other videos out there on this too. Just figured I'd include it since I'm doing it. The door will close after the fact. Just a nice little upgrade. So the threaded collar on mine had like some lugs on it for helping thread it on. I had to grind those off to get it to clear the sides of this little housing. I held it from the back with my finger and then spun the USB device in there. It's not difficult. Once you take those little lugs off, if you buy a different quick charge or a different thing, it might have some different a different little lock ring. But I put it in my vise, ground it off with the grinder, and it spun down no problem. Snapped everything back in my trim piece. Again, these are the trim pieces that have the cutout in them. Here's the two other ones side by side. Console parts have the cutout, other ones do not. You got to make sure on the driver's side also. My truck has brake controller, four-wheel drive. The one I got coming in, brake controller, four-wheel drive. Some of them have the trailer backup assist here. If you have a hole there and you don't have trailer backup assist, you could just buy the backup assist button, I guess. Maybe there's a way to hook that up. I don't know that. Maybe you could buy a little filler panel, but that is one tricky part about sourcing these parts. You want to make sure the incoming one with the cutout here matches your old one as far as the options you have. All right, now that I got all the wiring hooked up, I tested this outlet, just make sure there's power there, which there was. Just want to make sure I had the wiring right. But this sliding door and everything tucks underneath there like it should. I think that what I'm going to do next is put all of the dash pieces back on, put some power to the truck, and just make sure everything works before I go bolting down the whole console and putting in all this other trim along the sides and everything on. So I make sure it's all going to work, particularly the HVAC, before I put it all back together. So I've got the HVAC panel all hooked up. It's just kind of balancing there. Next piece I'm going to put on is this little collar. It bolts on right below the CD player, those two spots, one here and one here. This piece did not come with my console. I had to buy it. There's your part number there. Source that on eBay or any other website that sells OEM parts. It sits in there just like that. Once the HVAC panel on, it just kind of gives you that nice finished look. So same screws that came out with the other panel, just using a different trim piece on there. Alright, I'm probably doing this a little out of order because my HVAC's all hooked up already, but the next thing you're going to want to put on is these side panels. Hopefully you have all your devices and everything moved over to your piece that has the cutout. There's a lip on this part. You see this kind of lip that goes up the side. That tucks behind, that tucks behind a lot of the trim pieces that go on. So should be able to sneak it behind this little collar we just put on. Put this one up the side, and then when the HVAC face frame goes on, it will nestle right into that slot there. So you want to do both sides. Make sure you get all your devices and stuff swapped to the right trim pieces. All right, got those two side trim pieces put on. Now the HVAC panel, radio panel, whatever you want to call it, we'll put that on. There's two screws that go on the top. So we've kind of got the whole dash put together, aside from the speaker up top. All the stuff that's, you know, powered, HVAC panel, power outlet, four-wheel drive, brake controller, that little sliding door. There's a light in there. There's a cigarette lighter in there. All that's left to kind of test full functionality is this back panel part. I have that snapped off right now. So here it is right here. I put a USB in that also. Same exact process. But I'm gonna snap that on. It's all clips, and there's a couple screws at the top, and then there's a cup holder that snaps in there as well. So I'll get that put on, and then we'll be ready to test this thing out. So I've got the key on, got power here. That's power through our new console. Same with back here. Everything seems to be working properly. The wiring wasn't overly complex. The only thing I did notice is there's supposed to be a little light in this compartment here and underneath the console lid. So neither of those are working. To do a little troubleshooting there, but everything else is hooked up and working right. This is a XTR truck, crew cab, 6.5 foot box. Comes from Canada. It's got some unique options, you know, heated seats and, you know, rear sliding window, 36 gallon gas tank, all that good stuff that's nice to have in an XLT without going all the way up to a Lariat. And the console's from an XLT Sport, so I feel like a lot of it was pretty plug and play. The modifications I did make, I didn't really have to make. If you got an XL truck and you're trying to put a Lariat console or some combination thereof, this might be a lot different. But XTR or XLT 302 equipment group to, you know, this XLT Sport console was not bad at all. So I put in the speaker panel, or the little bin here up top. The tray itself snaps in the front. Screw here, screw here. Those real small 7mm screws we've been using, and there's a little silver Torx T20 that hold the speaker in. They're right there. See all four of them in that shot. Last thing you gotta do is snap the speaker cover itself on. Something like that. Should just press right on there and be on your way. These are the rear cup holders. It's all clipped on. You can see the slots for it. Just sets on there and push it down. You can access all the wiring with taking just that off. Pretty nice. You don't have to take the whole back panel off. Either way, it's pretty easy. So we're gonna snap that on and move on. All right, got the back of the console all put together. The front cup holders and trim and stuff, still got to do that. I just bolted it down, so I was going to go through the bolt locations. I also tested the HVAC. It works, comes out the back, doesn't whistle or howl or do make any weird noises. So I'm pretty excited about that all works. The bolt holes for the console. There's one here. Again, these are M6 thread. I had some socket cap screws. You can see one there. There's one there. Again, one in the back, and then there's one. I don't have a bolt in that yet, but there's one right there in the front, and it's the same like that on both sides. There's one in the back, one right about here, and then one in the very front. It's different than the jump seat, different bolts. You can repurpose some of them or take those to the hardware store like I mentioned. Those 10mm head, they're M6 thread. So pick the drive of your choosing. You're gonna need 6 of them total, 3 for each side. All right, I've got all 6 tightened up. I don't know what the torque spec is, just I tightened them up. Didn't go crazy. It's not like this thing's gonna go flying out of here. Next step I'm gonna do is throw these trim pieces on each side of the console. This one with the vent on it. Again, these should come with a console that you buy. Make sure that you account for that. This is the driver's side. The smaller one is the passenger side. These little vents, they go towards the front to help keep them straight. So I've got both those snapped on. It's just worth a note. Way back in there, it's a fastener. It's a M6 bolt, probably 10mm head. I don't remember what was up there. I think it was when they came out of that big long black trim piece along the bottom of the floor. It's the exact same kind of thing, except this is console trim. Should be able to fasten that in there, and it doesn't really hold a whole lot, but it was there for a reason, so I'm put it back in. We're getting pretty close. I'm getting pretty excited. So obviously the cup holders still need to go in. That's an easy kind of last step. There's some trim that covers the bolts that we just put in the very front here. Not way up there, but in the console here. See, I got some silver cap screws in there. From the factory, those are covered. So here's the two part numbers. Not sure which one is which, but I'll figure that out here in a second. It's part number 1, part number 2. Shot of both of them if you want to take a screenshot or something. Those are just plastic little trim caps that snap in there. Give it a little polished, you know, finished look. You could leave them out. Nobody would probably ever know, but you. But I'm gonna put them in. So I've got those snapped in. They do finish it off nice. So it's worth buying them. They weren't that cheap, but it does give that that pocket there a little bit of a more finished look. That's pretty much everything. Everything works. HVAC works. The power outlets both work. The rear, the one back here works. The one on the dash works. Last thing to do is snap in those cup holders. So I'll go over to my bench here and start a new clip, and we'll talk about the cup holders quick because I think there's a lot of options you can do there, which might be kind of cool. Talk about what I did. All right, so this is the final trim piece, the cup holders and stuff. Just to recap, I had a console shift, a pistol grip. Not a fan. So this insert that's underneath here, I bought on eBay. I'll share a part number. It wasn't an exact replacement. I had to do a little bit of trimming in the console itself. Not bad. It's pretty much the same. So just watch year to year. I know like 15 to 20, everybody says it's the same. I do know that there's potential for the Super Duty one, which it's similar to this. It does not have this center pocket to where there's a big area here and then 2 cup holders, but there's like a slider that goes over to make 4 cup holders. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know if it will fit. It seems like it would. I think it's the same console. It's probably worth looking into. That particular Super Duty insert was over $300 on eBay. I think I paid like $160 or somewhere around there. Shipped for this particular one. I had to get it cleaned up. I also paid another $40 for this little rubber mat because it didn't come with it. So I got $200 in just this particular item here. The trim that goes on top, like this. This is the one that's original to the console. I did my best to clean it up. It's far from perfect. If I was going to do this whole thing over, I might entertain buying another one of these just so that it's it's what everybody sees, and it would be nice if it was just in a little bit better shape. It just shows some wear and stuff on in a few spots. It's not bad once I get it a final clean, and it'll look okay. The only thing I'm missing at this particular moment is this little rubber insert that sits in this like pen holder. They're $130 some, I think, to get a new OEM one. I have no idea why there's so much money. It seems all these little rubber pieces, the little cup holder bottoms, and I have those sitting over here. A lot of this stuff is it's expensive. So if you can get it with the swap, out of the swap truck or from wherever you might buy a console from, and clean it up, it's certainly worth the effort. I mean, $40 for this. Again, $130 I think, plus shipping for this little flimsy piece of rubber in the center. There's some options for 3D printed ones. You could probably find a used one. Maybe somebody's selling it, they don't know what they have. You can get lucky. That's what I'm going to try to do. I'd like a rubber one. I'd like it to all match. I'll put this in the truck here. It's really easy. I think I covered it earlier, but this just snaps in. It's got clips all around it. It just snaps into the console itself, and then this goes over the top. These front clips on this, these go into the dash. If you look in the truck, you'd see right where they go. I've seen videos where these are a real pain to get out. I think I'm going to take these clips off and let that just rest in there for now. There's just something about this project that makes me think this will not be the last time I have this particular trim piece out. So these are a pain. The rest of it's easy. I'm going to pop these white clips off. It'll still sit in there fine. I'm sure it will still be fine. If it rattles or something, I'll put them back on. But if I have to retake this apart, it's much easier without those on there. So there's my cup holder insert snapped in there. Again, it's just clips. It just rests in there and push it down. This large trim piece, it tucks under in the front. You gotta push down. I need 2 hands to do it. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done, but you gotta go the front in first. Again, I took those little clips off so it won't hold in there. It goes in pretty tight. It shouldn't rattle or anything. So I'll snap that on and we'll start another clip. Now that that's snapped in, cup holders in, top trim pieces on, tucked under the dash. Everything's bolted down. That's kind of it for the console. I'm not going to film the seat going back in. If you've made it this far and you can't get the seat back in, let me know in the comments. I'm sure that will not be the case. So there it is, all bolted up, ready to drive. Everything's put in, the seat, the console, it all works. Both power outlets in the dash here, added that USB, did the same thing on the back of the console. Both 110 outlets work. Most importantly, the HVAC works. I made this video because of that. There's another YouTuber who made a video who inspired me to do this swap. He didn't do a lot with the HVAC. I think he just stuck with the floor vents. He has a really good video. I'll try to link that because he inspired me to do this. I just wanted to do the HVAC so the vents, the rear vents worked. I hope this was helpful. I'm sure I missed a few things. Leave a comment if there's something I can maybe help with, but I appreciate you watching. So I've been driving around with this for a couple days now, and it really does work out well for me. I'm really, really happy with it. There's just a couple things I modified slightly from the original video that I wanted to touch on, and a couple things just to kind of circle back that I mentioned in the main video. So the white clips on the front of this trim piece, I did leave those off, and it was fitting because I immediately had to take this trim off after installing it because I had a little issue with my cup holders. But having those white clips off made this trim piece here pop right out. You know, you open the console lid and you can pop all the clips, and it's significantly easier to remove it without those front clips in there. It doesn't creak or wobble or rattle or do anything weird when I'm driving, so I'm just going to leave them off. It makes disassembly just way easier. If I ever have to do any wiring or any modifications, that's going to save me a lot of headache. So the reason I had to take it apart was the cup holders themselves. So if you look at the original part of the video where I installed this tray, my console was from a 17 XLT Sport, and it had a pistol grip shifter, and it had the 17 cup holders in it, which were these. So what happened was I bought this black tray. There's actually two pieces here. So there's this black trim piece underneath, you know, around this perimeter here, and then underneath right where this seam is, that actually comes apart from underneath. There's some torque screws that hold in these cup holders. So if you rewind the video and look at the shots of those cup holders that came with this trim piece off of eBay, they have this big contraption on them, like a rubber band, spring-loaded type cup holder, and it just didn't fit right in my console. I mentioned in the video doing some trimming. I thought I had it trimmed where it would fit right. It didn't quite work. One of the kind of pressure mechanism was binding up, and it just didn't. I just wasn't happy with it. So I ended up using these cup holders, which were actually, they came with the console. So these are 17 cup holders. These just have these little rubber like soft spots. There's not like a big mechanism underneath. It's literally just this cup holder pocket and these. It fits a lot nicer. And I didn't really realize I had an issue with this trim piece when I bought it on eBay. So if I were to do it over again, obviously I would buy something different. I think those, you know, scrunchy, you know, rubber band style cup holders, I'll try to include an image of what those look like. It's a big mechanism. It's way overkill, I think. If I was going to do it again, I would not get that piece. It's for obviously a newer truck. I would think 18, 19, 20 probably. 15, 16, 17. Again, this is all my speculation. My console is from a 17. It came with these. I used to have a 2015. It had ones like these. So I'm just basing this on my personal experience. It could very well be different. These are a lot simpler. It fits a lot better. They work just as good for what I use them for. And I ended up swapping them out. I had to get these cleaned up because they were out of my nasty 2017 console. But I got rid of the ones that came with this insert, put those in, and it works much better. My video is getting a little bit long, but I just wanted to clarify this just because of the price of these pieces and making sure that you get the right stuff and you're not buying what you don't need or can't use. This separates right around this perimeter. If I flip this over here, there's 2 screws there and there's 2 screws there. And you can just see by looking at these cup holders how much simpler they are compared to the spring-loaded or rubber band cup holders. These have just those little rubber pads in them. That's the easiest way I've found to tell them apart. They look just like the ones on the back of the console. There's just a rubber pad. There's 2 here, and there's 2 on this side. There's not any on the outside. The other cup holders had a spring-loaded thing here, and here for both cup holders. That's the easiest way I could tell them apart. But I just swapped out just this insert piece here. This was out of my console that I got, you know, to do the whole swap. It had the pistol grip kind of insert got rid of that insert and just moved the cup holders only into this insert I got off eBay. So these are a lot easier to use, just something to be aware of and keep in mind. I got to get an insert for in here yet. Everything is working great. The HVAC works great. All the power outlets work great. I would really highly recommend this to anybody who doesn't use their jump seat. This console with the space it provides under the lid and just everything that comes with it, it's not that hard of a job. I did it on a Sunday with filming. I started at 9 o'clock in the morning and I finished at 6 p.m. And again, that was with filming and everything. And this was my first time doing it. So I wouldn't be afraid. It's tedious. It makes a mess. It's, you know, it'll take you a day. Maybe you plan for a weekend to be safe if you have all your parts and pieces. It's really worth it. So if there's questions, comments, I'd be happy to hear them. There's a lot of information out there, so I hope this kind of adds to that community, and I hope it was helpful.